We are joined with John Boyne, who is coming to participate in Isla Festival. Welcome.
Thank you.
John, do you envy Matthew Sylla, the thief of time?
Well, of course, he lives for a long time. He lives for 256 years. I'm not sure I'd want to live for 256 years, but I did like the fact that he lives through periods of history that I was always interested in. When I wrote that book, it was my first novel, and it was the first time I wrote something set in the past, and I deliberately chose periods of history that I already knew quite a bit about, that maybe I wanted to learn more about. So yeah, it was an interesting character to write about.
Someone said that we know people not for the books they read, but for the books that we reread. Which books do you reread?
I'm not a big rereader, I have to say. I find that there's so many books out there I want to read that life is too short. But I've read David Copperfield, I think, 4 times. There's the novel The Go-Between by L.P. Hartley, which is one of my favourites. I've read that a few times. I've read a couple of John Irving's novels a few times. But and I've read The Secret History by Donna Tartt a couple of times. But I would say there's probably no more than about 10 books that I've read more than once in my life.
When I was reading Mutiny on the Mountain, I had the feeling that you were enjoying writing this book.
Yeah, to an extent. It was actually quite a difficult novel to write, even though the structure was already there at the start. It was quite complicated at times, but I liked the idea of the adventure story. I liked the language in which it was written. The sort of a boy who is uneducated and makes up words and makes up sentences was certainly fun to do. By the end of it, I was exhausted, I have to say, probably more exhausted than any novel I've written. Also, there are long periods of that novel set in boats where very little happens, and you have to still make it interesting to the reader. So it was quite difficult, but I wouldn't say it was the one I've enjoyed writing most, but I'm pleased it comes across like that in the writing.
Yeah. Your novels have published in more than 46 languages. Do you worry the impact of some of your ideas are lost in translation?
Sometimes, but then, we read novels. I read novels in English that are translated, and, we rely on the translator. We put our trust in them to do it right. I like when I get emails from translators asking me questions about the books, asking me what a particular phrase meant or what I was trying to get at, because at least that shows a good sense of integrity about it. But it's very difficult to know, because I don't read these languages. You just have to trust and hope that they've got it right.
One of the most common questions that everyone asks to writers is like, which writer has influenced you in your life? But which school teacher have you influenced most in your life? To
be honest with you, I didn't have a very positive experience of school. It wasn't the happiest time of my life, and I'm not sure it was the most productive. I think schools are probably better now that they teach a lot more contemporary literature as well, which we didn't, and authors like myself can go into schools. There was no authors coming in to see us. I didn't really find myself, perhaps when I went to university, when I studied creative writing at the University of East Anglia, so out of school, and Malcolm Bradbury taught me, and that was very special, because first we were his last year before he retired. He was a novelist I really admired. It was quite something to be 23 years old and in a room every Wednesday afternoon with Malcolm. So, I wanted to impress him. I wanted to raise my game to be a better writer when I was giving him work. So I suppose he would be the answer, yeah.
The roundtable you are going to participate today is about the novel Memory and Resistance.
Yeah.
And you have said that one of the first books that you read, I don't remember now the title, it was about the Second World War.
Was it The Silver Sword? Maybe, yeah.
And the boy with the striped pajamas talks about that.
I think because I write novels for both adults and young readers, that when I focus on books for young readers, I want to write about subjects which are important. I don't want to write about vampires and things like that. I want to engage a young reader in a serious subject that they might not yet have engaged in. So with my first one for young people, the subject was the Holocaust. With my second, it was the death of a parent. With the third, it was about a child who's different and is abandoned by his family for being different. And now in Stay Where You Are and Then Leave, it's the First World War. And with some of these subjects, they're not always covered in schools. And I like the idea that if, particularly with Boyne and Striped Pajamas and Stay Where You Are, with the two wars, that if a child is moved by the story and engaged by the characters, that they will want to go on and learn more about it, and go to their libraries and read those books that I read when I was growing up that really influenced me in that way. So, I think I've just a really strong feeling that with children's literature, we should raise our game there. We should be writing about really serious, difficult subjects.
You read a lot. And do you write also a lot? When do you relax, and how do you relax?
Well, both reading and writing are relaxing to me in some ways. That they're when I'm not writing, I get a bit antsy. I actually find it's quite a calming thing to do, and particularly because I travel a lot, and I'm fortunate that I find myself able to write when I'm on the road, and so in hotel rooms or on planes or trains or something, and it kind of centres me. So I don't see it as a great chore to read or write. It's not something I want to take a break from. It's something I enjoy very much. That's very much part of my life and has been since I was a child. But I have other interests. I play the guitar, and I like to cook, and I have a dog, and
a dog, by the way, that I learned that is the one who you read your first manuscripts.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because he's there when I'm writing. I tend to read things out loud, and just to hear the rhythm of the sentences and the way the language is working. And he's usually sitting on the floor in his basket, listening.
And how do you take his critics?
Everyone's a critic, so sometimes he never has much to say, has to be said. But I have this theory that when writers get dogs, then dogs start to appear in all their novels. And ever since I've had a dog, there's a dog in every book I've written. So,
which interests you most, philosophy or history?
History.
History. Yeah,
history. I wasn't a philosophy student, and when I hear intense philosophical discussions going on, sometimes it makes me feel stupid, that I don't understand what people are talking about. History definitely interests me. I think particularly as a storyteller, as a novelist, that there's so much out there, and there's so many intriguing parts of history that I want to learn more about, and that I feel it could easily be turned into novels.
And curiously enough, through the history, I do believe that you raise philosophical questions like love, death, and war, and peace.
Yeah, in each novel I try to, write something which is interesting and is asking questions and it's challenging. So I guess my own sense of philosophy is coming into the story in some way. I think with each book I'm writing, I'm just trying to get, as all writers are, you try to get better and better and more interesting. I hope I'm writing better now than I was 10 years ago, and that the novels are more intense and grow from my own maturity and experience.
And I'm sure it will be continue like that. Thank you very much, Sean, for coming here.
Thank you.